Introduction. On a clear night, you'll be able to see numerous stars twinkling in the sky. The vast surrounding space is called the universe. The universe includes everything that exists. The most distant stars, planets, satellites, as well as our own Earth and all the objects on it. Thus, in order to study the constitution of this universe, we have to first discuss the objects like galaxies, stars, planets and satellites, etc., which are found in the universe. Objectives. At the end of this lesson, you'll be able to list the celestial objects and identify some, understand the phases of the moon, keep track of lunar expedition, locate some of the constellations in the night sky, know about solar system, explain the role of artificial satellites. The moon. The moon appears to be the brightest of all other celestial objects after the sun. You can see the whole of the moon on a full moon day. How are you able to see the moon? It is because it reflects the light of the sun. The moon does not produce its own light, but looks bright because it reflects the light from the sun. Think of the sun as a light bulb, and the moon as a mirror, reflecting light from the light bulb. The moon revolves around the earth and also around the sun along with the earth. The moon completes one revolution around the earth in 27.3 days. In the meantime, the earth moves ahead in its orbit. Thus, from the earth, the moon appears to complete one revolution between one moon day and the next in 29.5 days. You know that a lunar eclipse may occur on some full moon days. Phases of the moon. New moon. During a new moon, we can see no portion of the moon's surface that is lit. We see only the dark side of the moon. This typically marks the beginning of the lunar cycle, which lasts 29.5 days. The moon is between the earth and the sun in its orbit. Waxing crescent. During the waxing crescent phase, we see on the right side a small sliver of the lit moon. First quarter. During the first quarter phase, we see the right half of the lit moon. The moon and earth are now side by side in their orbits around the sun. Waxing gibbous. During the waxing gibbous phase, we see almost the entire right side of the lit moon. Full moon. During a full moon, we see the entire half of the moon's surface that is lit. The moon is positioned behind the earth and the sun. Waning gibbous. During the waning gibbous phase, we see almost the entire left side of the lit moon. Last quarter. During the last quarter phase, we see the left half of the moon lit. The moon and earth are now side by side in their orbits around the sun. Waning crescent. During the waning crescent phase, we see on the left side a small sliver of the lit moon. Moon's surface. The Earth's one natural satellite, the Moon, is more than 1/4 the size of Earth itself, 3,474 kilometer diameter, making the Earth-Moon system virtually a double planet. Because of its smaller size, the Moon's gravity is 1/6 of the Earth's gravity. That is, a person who weighs 60 kg on the Earth would weigh just 10 kg on the Moon. Constellation. We see thousands of stars on a clear moonless night, and some of these stars are arranged in groups or patterns. One group of stars suggested the outline of a bear, another group of stars reminded them of a hunter, and so on. The stars which appear in the form of a closed group and form recognizable shapes and patterns are known as constellations. Usura Major Constellation or Great Bear Constellation. The Indian name of Usura Major Constellation or Great Bear Constellation is Saptarishi. The Great Bear Constellation reminds us of large ladle or a question mark studded in the sky. The Usura Major Constellation or the Great Bear Constellation consists of 7 bright stars arranged in a pattern resembling somewhat a big bear. The constellation Usura Minor, or Small Dipper, also has 7 stars in it. The pole star forms the handle tip of the Usura Minor. Orion constellation. The Indian name of Orion constellation is Mriga. Orion constellation also consists of 7 prominent stars. The arrangement of stars in the Orion constellation is shown in the figure. Orion means hunter. So the arrangement of stars in Orion constellation is supposed to resemble a hunting man. The solar system. The solar system consists of the Sun, the 9 planets, and their satellites or moons, and thousands of other smaller heavenly bodies such as asteroids, comets, and meteors. The solar system is dominated by the Sun. The Sun is at the center of the solar system, and all these bodies are revolving around it. The gravitational pull of the Sun keeps all the planets and other objects revolving around it. Thus, the motion of all the members of the solar system is governed mainly by the gravitational force of the Sun. Satellites or moons. A satellite or moon is a solid heavenly body that revolves around a planet. The moon revolves around the Earth, so moon is a natural satellite of Earth. The satellites have no light of their own. They shine because they reflect the light of the Sun. We will now describe the Earth's satellite moon in detail. It should be noted that though we commonly call Earth's natural satellite as moon, the satellites of all other planets can also be called their moons. Planets. Planets are solid heavenly bodies which revolve around the Sun in closed elliptical paths. A planet is made of rock and metal and produces no light of its own. A planet shines because it reflects the light of the Sun. Since the planets are much nearer than the stars, they appear to be big and do not twinkle at night. The planets move around the Sun from west to east, so the relative positions of the planets keep changing day by day. The planets are very small when compared to the Sun or other stars. There are 9 major planets, including the Earth. The planet nearest to the Sun is Mercury, and the planet farthest to the Sun is Pluto. The names of the planets along with their Indian names are given in the order of increasing distances from the Sun. Mercury, Buddha. It is the nearest to the Sun. Venus, Shukra. Earth, Prithvi. Mars, Mangal. Jupiter, Brihaspati, biggest planet. Saturn, Shani. Uranus, Indra. Neptune, Varun. Pluto, Yama, smallest planet. It is farthest from the Sun. Among the 9 planets of the solar system, 5 planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn, can be seen easily with the naked eye. They are referred to as terrestrial planets which have solid and rocky surfaces. 3 planets, Uranus, Neptune and Pluto, are very far away and have been discovered with the help of the telescope. These planets are referred to as Jovian planets. The planet Earth is called the green planet. Mercury is the planet nearest to the Sun. It is smaller compared to Earth and is nearly of the same size as that of the Moon. It is occasionally visible just before sunrise or after sunset. Due to its brightness, it is often called morning or evening star. Like Moon, Mercury too has a rocky surface and mountains. Venus. Venus is the next planet nearest to the Sun. Venus is, however, the closest planet to the Earth. The planet Venus is the brightest object in the night sky except the Moon. Venus appears bright because it reflects about 75% of the sunlight falling on it. The mass of Venus is 4/5 times that of the Earth, while both are nearly the same size. The Earth is the 3rd planet from the Sun. When viewed from the other space, the Earth appears blue and green due to the reflection of light from water and land on its surface. Earth is the only planet in our solar system which has sufficient oxygen, the gas we need in order to live. It is also the only planet to have large quantities of water. It is the presence of life which makes Earth a unique planet. The Earth rotates about an imaginary axis that passes through the North and South Pole. The axis is slightly tilted with respect to the plane of its orbit. The day and night on the Earth occur due to this rotation. The Earth completes its journey around the Sun in 365 days, which we call a year. The change in seasons on the Earth takes place due to the tilting of its axis of rotation and the change in its position with respect to the Sun. As a result of the tilting of the axis, the northern and southern hemispheres of the Earth towards the Sun keep changing throughout the year. When the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the Sun, we experience summer, while it is winter season in the southern hemisphere. Mars. Mars is the fourth planet from the Sun. Since the planet Mars is quite far off from the Sun, it is a cold planet. The planet Mars has an atmosphere containing traces of carbon dioxide, nitrogen, hydrogen, and oxygen. The oxygen on Mars is too little for the survival of life there. Jupiter. Jupiter is the fifth planet from the Sun and the biggest planet of the solar system. It is the first of the gaseous planets made up mainly of hydrogen and helium. It is a very bright object in the sky and appears as a very colorful object when seen through a telescope. Jupiter has some rings around it, but these are extremely thin. It has a very deep atmosphere. The atmosphere of Jupiter consists of hydrogen, helium, methane, and ammonia. It is a very cold planet, its surface temperatures being minus 150 degrees Celsius. The mass of Jupiter is more than 3,000 times the mass of the Earth. Because of its extremely large mass, Jupiter exerts a very strong gravitational pull on the other objects which pass it by. For example, a comet passing close to Jupiter experiences its very strong gravitational pull and gets deflected from its original path. Saturn. Saturn is the sixth planet from the Sun. Saturn is the second biggest planet of the solar system. Like Jupiter, Saturn is also made up of hydrogen and helium. It is surrounded by hundreds of narrow rings that are visible. The presence of a well-developed system of rings around Saturn makes it unique in the solar system. Uranus. Uranus is the seventh planet from the Sun. Uranus is the first planet to have been discovered by the use of a telescope. After Jupiter and Saturn, Uranus is the third biggest planet of the solar system. It is also made up mainly of hydrogen and helium and has some rings around it. The most interesting point about Uranus is that it rotates on its axis from east to west, whereas all other planets rotate from west to east. Neptune. Neptune lies just beyond Uranus. Counting outwards from the Sun, Neptune is the eighth planet of the solar system. Neptune is about the same size as Uranus, and it is the last of the large planets. Neptune also has some rings around it. Pluto. Pluto was the last planet to be discovered. It is the outermost of the known planets of the solar system. It is the ninth planet from the Sun. Please note that the planet Pluto is the farthest from the Sun as well as from the Earth. Pluto is the smallest planet of the solar system. It is thought to consist mainly of frozen methane. Being farthest from the Sun, Pluto is the coldest planet of the solar system. Asteroids. Asteroids are very small planets of rock and metal which revolve around the Sun mainly between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. Actually, asteroids are a belt of a kind which somehow fail to assemble into a planet and keep revolving between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. There may be as many as 1 lakh asteroids. The biggest asteroid, called Ceres, has a diameter of about 800 kilometers, whereas the smallest asteroid is as small as a pebble. We have already studied that Pluto is the outermost planet of the solar system. At the edge of the solar system, there are billions of very small objects called comets. These comets were formed very early from the same gas cloud from which other members of the solar system were made. These comets are so far off that they are unknown to the world. Thus, a comet is a collection of gas and dust which appears as a bright ball of light in the sky with a long glowing tail in the figure. The tail of a comet always points away from the sun. Meteors. Meteors are the heavenly bodies from the sky, which we see as a bright streak of light that flashes from a moment across the sky. Some meteors are the dust particles left behind by comets, and the others are the pieces of asteroids which have collided. Some meteors are so large that a part of them reaches the surface of the earth before they get evaporated completely. These are known as meteoroids. Artificial satellites. You must be familiar with the names of satellites like INSAT-3B. INSAT-3B is an example of man-made or artificial satellite. They revolve around the earth like the natural satellites but are closer than the moon. The launch vehicles developed by the scientists carry the satellites into the space and launch them as artificial satellites. Only 6 countries in the world have the technology for developing artificial satellites, and India is one of them. Artificial satellites help in long-distance transmission of television programs, communication through telephones and internet. They also help in research, defense, and remote sensing. It is used to collect information about weather, agriculture, land, and ocean features. Summary. Let us summarize what we have learned. The phases of the moon occur because we can see only that part of the moon which reflects the light of the sun towards us. Stars are celestial bodies that emit light of their own. Our sun is also a star. It is convenient to express distances of stars in light years. Stars appear to move from east to west. The pole star appears to be stationary from the earth because it is situated close to the direction of the axis of rotation of the earth. Constellations are a group of stars that appear to form recognizable shapes. The solar system consists of 8 planets and a host of asteroids, comets, and meteors. A body revolving around another body is called a satellite. Moon is the natural satellite of the Earth. Some planets also have natural satellites. Venus is the brightest planet in the night sky. Jupiter is the largest planet of the solar system. The artificial satellites revolve around the Earth. They are used for weather forecasting, long-distance communication, and remote sensing.
This is Concept E classes, and today we'll deal with Chapter 17 of Class 8 Science, Stars and the Solar System. We'll be covering this chapter in 2 parts. So let's begin Part 1. So these are the topics that we're going to study in this chapter. So in Part 1, we'll first study about celestial objects, the moon, the stars and the constellations. And in Part 2, we'll deal with solar system and some other members of the solar system like meteors, asteroids, comets, etc. Now, if we observe the night sky, we are able to find countless stars. Some may be bright, some may not be so bright. And if we observe them carefully, we can see that some stars, they twinkle, and some objects in the sky, they do not twinkle, and they are the planets. Similarly, the moon is there, which is the brightest object in the sky. Now, all the stars, the planets, the moon, they are called as celestial objects. So the first topic of this chapter is celestial objects. So what do you mean by a celestial object? It is a natural body outside of the Earth's atmosphere. The stars, the planets, the moon and many other objects in the sky like asteroids, meteors, comets, etc., which are outside the Earth's atmosphere, are called as celestial objects. And the study of celestial objects and its associated phenomenon is called as astronomy, and the person who studies astronomy is an astronaut. So let's make some observations of some of the celestial objects and learn about them. So the first celestial body that we're going to study is the moon. The moon is an astronomical body which orbits around the Earth, and it's our planet's only natural satellite. We'll study more about natural satellite in the next part of this chapter. Now, if we observe the moon continuously for several nights, we can observe that there's a change in the shape of moon every day. So sometimes we can observe that the moon is fully round in shape, sometimes no moon is seen, sometimes it's a crescent shape like a sea-like structure. So these various shapes of the bright part of the moon are called as phases of the moon. Now let's understand more about this. Now the day on which the whole disk of the moon is visible is known as the full moon day. Thereafter, every night, the size of the bright part of the moon, it becomes thinner and thinner. And on the 15th day, the moon is not visible, and this day is known as the new moon day. The next day, only a small portion of the moon appears in the sky, and this is known as a crescent moon. Then again, the moon grows larger every day, and on the 15th day, we once again get a full view of the moon. Now, the various shapes of the bright part of the moon as seen during a month is called as the phases of the moon. Now the time period between the one full moon to the next full moon is slightly longer than 29 days. That is, if we see a full moon today, then only after 29 days we are able to see the next full moon. Now the phases of the moon, they play a very important role in our social life, because almost all the festivals in India are celebrated according to the phases of the moon. For example, Diwali, it is celebrated at the new moon day. Buddha Purnima and Guru Nanak's birthday is celebrated on the full moon day. Mahashivratri is celebrated on the 30th night of the waning moon. Eid al-Fitr is observed on the following day of the crescent moon. So these phases of the moon, they play a very important role in our social life. Now, why does the moon changes its shape every day? Let's see. In the last chapter, we studied that the moon is a non-luminous object. That is, it does not produce its own light, whereas the sun and the other stars do. Then how are we able to see the moon? We see the moon because the sunlight falling on it gets reflected towards us. That is, we see the moon because it reflects the light falling on it from the sun. Hence, the shape that we see is that part of the moon on which the sunlight falls. For example, on the new moon day, here the moon is lined up between the sun and the earth. Hence, we see the side of the moon that is not lit by the sun. Similarly, in the full moon day, on that day the moon receives a full light from the sun and it reflects it fully. Hence, we are able to see the full shape of the moon. Now, the size of the illuminated part of the moon visible from the earth increases each day after the new moon day. So this is a position of the moon in its orbit and its corresponding phases. We can see the new moon, the full moon, the crescent moon, and all the different phases. Now the moon completes one rotation on its own axis and it completes one revolution around the earth. We should also remember that the earth, along with the moon, it also revolves around the sun. Now let's see about the moon's surface. When astronauts landed on the moon, they found that the moon's surface was dusty and barren, and there were many craters of different size on the moon. And it also had large number of steep and high mountains, and some of these were as high as the highest mountains on the earth. And the moon, it has no atmosphere. On July 21, 1969, Indian time, the American astronaut Neil Armstrong landed on the moon for the first time. So he was the first man who landed on the moon, and he was followed by Edwin Aldrin. So that's all about moon. Now let's study about stars. There is a large number of stars in the sky and they appear to us like small points as they are very, very far away. The sun is also a star and it is about 150 million kilometers away from the earth. So the question that comes to our mind is, if the sun is a star, then why does it appear large compared to other stars? So this can be understood by a simple example. If you place a football near to you, it appears bigger. Whereas if we place a football about a distance of 100 meters away, it appears smaller. Similar is the case of stars. The stars are millions of times farther away from the sun. Therefore, the stars appear as small points as compared to the sun. The next nearest star to the earth is the Proxima Centauri. It is at a distance of about this much kilometer from the earth. So it's quite hard or inconvenient to describe the distance. So for that we use a unit called as light year. So let's see what is a light year. So it is not convenient to describe the distance in kilometer. Hence we express the distance of objects in the universe in a unit known as light year. So a light year is the distance travelled by light in 1 year. We know that the speed of the light is 3 into 10 raised to 8 meter per second. Thus the distance of the sun from the earth is appeared to be about 8 light minutes. And Alpha Centauri is also another star and the distance of Alpha Centauri is about 4.3 light years. So in short, we just have to understand that the distances of objects in the universe is expressed in a unit known as light year, and a light year is the distance travelled by light in 1 year. We are only able to see the stars during night. Why are we not able to see the stars during the day? Let's see. In fact, the stars are present in the sky during the daytime also. However, they are not visible because of the bright sunlight. Now, if we observe a prominent star or a group of stars in the sky for about 2 hours or more, we are able to find that there is a change in position of the stars in the sky. We are able to find that the stars, they appear to move from east to west. Why is that? It is because the earth rotates from west to east on its axis. So in order to understand this, let's consider an activity. If you are moving in a train and it's moving forward, we can observe that the nearby trees and buildings, they appear to move in the backward direction. Similar is the case here. The earth rotates from west to east on its axis, hence the stars, they all appear to move from east to west. Now let's study about a star that does not appear to move. It is the pole star. It is situated at the direction of the Earth's axis. Hence, it does not appear to move. Let's understand this concept of pole star by a simple activity. Now take an umbrella and open it. Now make some stars out of paper and paste one star at the position of the central rod of the umbrella and others at different places of the cloth. Now rotate the umbrella by holding its central rod in your hand and observe the stars. We can see that the star which is situated at the central rod, it does not appear to move. Similar is the case of the pole star. As the pole star lies close to the axis of the rotation, so when the earth rotates, the pole star also does not appear to move. Now the next topic of this chapter is constellation. Now what is a constellation? The stars forming a group that has a recognizable shape is called as a constellation. Now this is a constellation. We can easily identify some of the constellations in the night sky, but before that we should first know what a particular constellation looks like and where to look for it in the night sky. Now the shape of the constellation, it resembles objects which are familiar to those of people. For example, the Ursa Major, it looks like a spoon. The Orion looks like a hunter. The Cassiopeia, the Leo Major. So these all are some of the constellations that can be observed in the night sky. Now the shape of the constellation always remain the same, and the constellation, it appears to move in the sky from east to west. Now let's briefly see each of these constellations. So some of the constellations that can be observed in the night sky are the Big Dipper, Orion, Cassiopeia and Leo Major. So first let's discuss about the Big Dipper. Now, the Big Dipper is also called as the Great Bear or the Saptarshi or the Ursa Major. It consists of 7 prominent stars and it appears like a big ladle or like a question mark. There are 3 stars in the handle of the ladle and 4 in its bowl. And this constellation can be seen during summertime in the early part of the night. Now we can locate the pole star with the help of Ursa Major. Let's see how. First we have to observe the northern part of the sky and identify the Ursa Major. Now look at the 2 stars at the end of the Ursa Major and imagine a straight line passing through the stars as it's shown in the figure. Now extend this imaginary line towards the north direction and this line will lead to a star which is not too bright, and that star is the pole star. Hence we are able to locate the pole star with the help of Ursa Major. Now the next constellation that we are going to study is the Orion. Now the Orion, it can be seen during the winter in the late evenings, and it is also called as a hunter constellation. It is one of the most magnificent constellations in the sky. It has 7 or 8 bright stars. The 3 middle stars, it represents the belt of the hunter, and the 4 bright stars, it appears as in the form of a quadrilateral. Now just like how we located pole star using the Ursa Major, we are able to locate the brightest star called as Sirius using Orion constellation. Now to locate Sirius, imagine a straight line passing through the 3 middle stars of the Orion, and now look along this line towards the east. This line will lead to the brightest star in the sky, which is the Sirius. Hence we can locate Sirius using the constellation Orion. Now let's study about the constellation called as Cassiopeia. Now Cassiopeia is another prominent constellation in the northern sky. It is visible during winter in the early part of night. It looks like a distorted W or M. Now the last constellation that we are going to study is the Leo Major. Now the Leo constellation, it lies in the northern sky and it is one of the largest constellations in the sky, and it consists of 9 stars. So that's all about constellations. So that's all for part 1 in chapter 17. In part 2, we'll deal with the solar system, the planets, asteroids, comets, meteors, and artificial satellites. Now in part 2, we'll deal with the solar system and some other members of the solar system like the asteroids, the comets, meteors, and artificial satellites. So the first topic is the solar system. The sun and the celestial bodies which revolve around it form the solar system. So what all are the celestial bodies? It includes planets, comets, millions of asteroids and meteors. And the gravitational attraction between the sun and these objects keeps them revolving around it. So in short, we can say that the solar system is the gravitationally bound system of the sun and these objects like planets, comets or asteroids that orbit the sun. Now let's discuss some of the members of the solar family. So the first one is the sun. The sun is the star at the center of the solar system and it is the nearest star from the earth. It continuously emits huge amounts of heat and light. It is actually a ball of gas which consists of about 92.1% of hydrogen and 7.8% of helium. Now the sun is the source of all energy on earth. And in fact, the sun is the main source of heat and light for all the planets. Now let's see about planets. Now planets is broadly defined as any relatively large natural body that revolves in an orbit around the sun or some other stars. Now we know there are 8 planets: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune. Till 2006 there was 9 planets in the solar system and Pluto was the farthest planet from the sun. But in 2006 the International Astronomical Union, they adopted a new definition of planet and Pluto does not fit this definition. So it is no longer a planet of the solar system. Now this planet, they look like stars, but they do not have their own light. They are non-luminous objects. They merely reflect the sunlight that falls upon them. Now the simplest method to identify planets from stars is that stars twinkle whereas planets do not. See, you can see the difference here. So in this image as well, we can see that the planets, they have different colors. For example, the Saturn, it shows a gold color. Mercury, it is gray in color. Jupiter is orange in color. So planets do not twinkle whereas stars twinkle. And another difference is that the planets, they keep changing their position with respect to the stars. Now the planets, they have a definite path in which they revolve around the sun, and that path is called as an orbit. Now the time taken by a planet to complete one revolution around the sun is called as its period of revolution. Now what do you mean by revolution? Revolution means it is a movement of one object around another object. Now the period of revolution, it increases as the distance of the planet increases from the sun. That is, a period of revolution of Mercury would be small as compared to that of Mars. Now besides revolving around the sun, the planet, it also rotates on its own axis as a top. Okay, see the Earth, we can see that it rotates on its own axis, and the time taken by a planet to complete one rotation is called as its period of rotation. Now the Earth takes 1 year to complete one revolution around the sun. Hence its period of revolution is 365 days. And the time taken by Earth to complete one rotation around the sun is 1 day. That is 24 hours. Hence the period of rotation is 1 day. The next member of our solar family is the satellite. Now some planets are known to have moons or satellites revolving around them. Now the definition of satellite is any celestial body revolving around another celestial body is called as its satellite. Any celestial body revolving around another celestial body is called as its satellite. For example, moon. Moon is a satellite of the Earth. So these all are natural satellites. Now there are many man-made satellites which revolve around the Earth as well. And these man-made satellites are called as artificial satellites. We learn more about artificial satellites in the following slides. So let's now discuss each of these planets briefly. So here we can observe we have 8 planets, and this is the axis of rotation, how they rotate, and we can see that the rotation direction also, some of the planets is from east to west, some is from west to east. So let's discuss each of these planets briefly. So the first planet is Mercury. Now Mercury, also known as Budh, is the nearest planet to the sun, and it is the smallest planet of our solar system. As Mercury is very close to the sun, it is very difficult to observe it, as most of the time it is hidden in the glare of the sun. However, it can be observed just before sunrise or just after sunset near the horizon. Now Mercury, it has no satellite of its own. The next planet is Venus. Now Venus, also known as Shukra, is the Earth's nearest planetary neighbor, and it is the brightest planet in the night sky. Sometimes Venus appears in the eastern sky before the sunrise, sometimes in the western sky just after the sunset. Therefore, Venus is often called as the morning or the evening star, although it's not a star. Now Venus, it has no moon or satellite, and the rotation of Venus on its axis is from east to west, while that of Earth is from west to east. Now if you observe Venus through a telescope, we can see that the Venus also shows faces just like that of the moon. The next planet is our Earth, Prithvi or Earth. It is the only planet in the solar system in which the life is known to exist, and some special environmental conditions are responsible for the existence and continuation of life on the Earth. And some of these conditions include the right temperature on Earth. That is, Earth is at the right distance from the sun. It's neither too close nor too far from the sun. Hence, its temperature is optimum for life. Second is the presence of water. Thirdly, we have a suitable atmosphere. And fourth is the blanket of ozone. Now, the Earth, appears to be blue-green from space due to the reflection of light from the water and the land mass on its surface. Now, the axis of rotation of the Earth is not perpendicular to the plane of its orbit. Now, we have already studied about equator, and the plane of equator is called as the equatorial plane, and the plane in which the Earth revolves around the Sun is called as the orbital plane. Now, these two planes are inclined to each other at an angle of 23.5 degree. This means that the axis of Earth is inclined to its orbital plane at an axis of 66.5 degree. Now, this tilt is responsible for the change of seasons in the Earth. We know that the Earth, it rotates on its own axis and it takes 1 day to complete one rotation, and it revolves around the Sun and it takes 1 year to complete one revolution. Now, throughout this year, different parts of the Earth, it receives the Sun's most direct rays, and this tilt always remains a constant. Now, if the northern pole tilt towards the Sun, then it is summer in the northern hemisphere. Now, when the south pole tilt towards the Sun, then it is winter in the northern hemisphere. Hence, we can say that the seasons change due to the change in the position of the Earth around the Sun. If you want to know more about this, message me in the comment section. I'll give you a detailed lecture about this. Now, the next planet, the first outside the orbit of the Earth, is Mangal, and it is called as a red planet as it appears slightly reddish in color. The Mars have two small natural satellites, moons, and other than natural satellites, it has many artificial satellites. One such satellite is Mangalyaan. ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, it launched its first Mars orbiter mission called as Mangalyaan on November 5th, 2013, and it was successfully placed into an orbit of Mars on September 24th, 2014. With this, India became the first country in the world to do so in the first attempt. Next planet is Jupiter. Now, Jupiter or Brihaspati is the largest planet of our solar system. It's so large that about 1,300 Earths can be placed inside this giant planet. However, the mass of Jupiter is about 318 times that of our Earth, and it rotates very rapidly along on its axis. It has a large number of satellites, and it also have faint rings around it. Now, we can easily recognize Jupiter as it appears quite bright in the sky, and if you observe it through a telescope, we can also see the 4 of its large moons. Now, beyond Jupiter, we have Saturn, which appears yellowish in color. It is also called as Shani. And what makes Saturn unique in the solar system is its beautiful rings. But these rings are not visible with a naked eye, but we can observe them with a small telescope. Now, Saturn also have a large number of satellites, and one of the interesting thing about Saturn is that it is least dense among all the planets. Its density is less than that of water. The next planet is Uranus. It is the outermost planet of the solar system, and it can be seen only with the help of large telescopes. Uranus also rotates from east to west, and the most remarkable feature of Uranus is that it has a highly tilted rotational axis. If Earth has a tilt of about 23 degree, Uranus have a tilt of about 97 degree. As a result, in its orbital motion, it appears to roll on its side. The last planet is Neptune. It is also the outermost planet of the solar system, and it can be seen only with the help of large telescopes. Now, the first 4 planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth and Mars, they are very nearer to the Sun than the other 4 planets. Hence, they are called as inner planets, and all inner planets, they have very few moons. Now, the planets which are far off than the inner planets, namely Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune, they are called as outer planets, and they have a ring system around them, and the outer planets, they have large number of moons as well. So the inner planets are Mercury, Venus, Earth and Mars. Outer planets are Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune. Now, other than the planets and the Sun, we have some other members in the solar system as well. Some of these members include asteroids, comets, meteors, meteorites, and artificial satellites. Now let's discuss each of these members briefly as well. So first let's see what are asteroids. Now there is a large gap in between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, and this gap is actually occupied by a large number of small rocky and metallic objects called as asteroids. The asteroids are also called as minor planets, and they revolve around the sun. So this gap is also called as asteroid belt, and a majority of the non-asteroids are within this asteroid belt, and we are able to see these asteroids with the help of large telescopes. The comets are also the member of our solar system, and they revolve around the sun in highly elliptical orbits. However, the period of revolution around the sun is usually very long. That is, it takes a number of years for them to complete one revolution around the sun. Now, the comet, it has a bright head with a long tail. Actually, the comet is an icy small solar system body that when passes close to the sun, it warms and it begins to release gases. And this produces a visible atmosphere that we generally call as a tail. Now, the length of the tail, it grows in size as it approaches the sun. And the tail of comet is always directed away from the sun. Now, one example of a comet is the Halley's Comet. This comet, it appears after nearly every 76 years, and it was last seen in 1986. Now, let's see what are meteors and meteorites. Now, at night when the sky is clear and the moon is not there, you might have observed bright streak of light in the sky. They are commonly known as shooting stars, but they are actually meteors. So meteor is usually a small object or a piece of dust or debris from space that occasionally enter into the Earth's atmosphere. And at that time, it has a very high speed. And the friction due to the Earth's atmosphere heats it up and it glows and it evaporates quickly. That is why this bright streak of light, it lasts only for a very short time. But some meteors might be very large so that they can reach the earth before they evaporate completely. And the body that reaches the earth is called as a meteorite. And the meteorites, they help the scientists in investigating the nature of the material from which the solar system was formed. Now there is another concept called as a meteor shower. When the earth crosses the tail of a comet, many large number of meteors are seen, and these are known as the meteor showers. And some meteor showers, they occur at regular intervals each year. Artificial satellites. We have already studied that any celestial body which revolves around another celestial body are called as satellites. And there are natural satellites and artificial satellites. So artificial satellites are man-made. They are launched from the earth and they revolve around the earth much closer than the moon. India have built and launched several artificial satellites like Aryabhatta, which was the first Indian satellite, then some other satellites like INSAT, IRS, Kalpana-1, EDUSAT, etc. And these artificial satellites, they have many practical applications as well, like forecasting weather, transmitting television and radio signals, used for telecommunication, and also used for remote sensing.